Doesn't take long using these tools. If it was a large wind site or something like that, I might break out the power tools, but this little teeny thing here doesn't amount to much. So I can go ahead and take care of it in a few seconds with this knob cutter. When you're doing this, you kind of want to be conscious of how you're carving it out, what it looks like, etc. Because, again, when this heals, you kind of want it to look like a smooth transition versus a knob that's sticking out. So while you're doing it now, instead of having to come back later and do it again, it's best just to go ahead and make the transition work. I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep this branch or not down here. You know what? I don't want that big old lip sitting right there, so bye-bye branch. It's more important to me that when this heals, it looks like a smooth transition versus a transition with a bump at the bottom. Probably wasn't going to use that branch anyway for the final design, so why take the risk of having to do this twice? Not only that, but we got this branch right here that's right there at that site as well, so it's going to help wound to heal also. Almost finished here. Just want to make sure I've got a nice smooth transition. And there you have it. Go ahead and zoom in on that so you can see. A few seconds with the knob cutter. This is a, I think this is a 12-inch knob cutter. They make a smaller one too. I've got an 8-inch and a 6-inch knob cutter, but the larger ones on the larger winds, quicker time. Go ahead and zoom in on that so you can see. Find something to prop it up with. There we go. Profile from the side. Smooth transition from, just looks like the outer portion of a curve. I did concave it a little bit because when the wound heals back over, it'll swell out a little bit, so that'll just look like an outside bend. And we've got this branch right here that'll assist in the healing. Right here is where the new apex of the tree is. There's a dormant bud right there. I don't know if you can see it or not, but that's going to be the new apex of this tree. And it's going to grow up and out this direction. It's going to grow like that. So that's the front of the tree. It's going to grow forward, so it's still going to have that final, the final front of this tree is going to be leaning forward and bowing to the viewer. And we're going to let this little dormant bud grow to about, I'm going to say about as thick as your index finger. I'm going to let it grow freely until it gets to about that. Being that I'm doing that, it's going to heal this over fast. I mean, we're talking 3-4 months. This wound right here is going to be 100% completely healed over. This dormant bud right here will be as big around as your index finger, and that's the final thickness that I need for the realistic transition from the end, from the girth of the root flare to the top of the tree. I'm going from this all the way to something that's about the size of your finger in, not quite 24 inches, maybe 24 inches when it's finished. And then I do have an opposite dormant bud from where that one is. So, you know, may use that one as a back branch. As long as I see these buds starting to swell up here, probably what I'm going to end up doing a little bit later on. So once I see those buds are starting to swell up, I'm going to go ahead and reduce the top of this thing back down because I know that once the buds start swelling that it's not going to die back beyond that point. And then I'll go ahead and make the reduction up here to that union. That way it can kind of heal over at the same time the growth's extending. Not really necessary, but why not do it while you got it? Alright, so next up on this tree, I'm going to try to wire this lower branch kind of a little bit better than it is now. I don't know if you guys can see that thing or not, but it's ridiculous. It looks like this coming out of the tree, and I want it to make it look more realistic flow. So we're going to go ahead and tackle that next. I'm going to hit this with some wind paste. I got another spot on here I'm going to hit with a little bit of wind paste, and then we'll look at the tree at the final design. Stick with us. Alright, there we have it. That's all we're going to do on this tree for this year. We have reduced the new apex down to where we want it for our new leader, so we have a nice transition. We have regrafted for the third time a branch, number 2, I guess it would be, technically it would be number 2 branch. Realistically it's number 3 branch, because we have a back branch that's lower than it back here. Typically they go 1 branch, 2 branch, back branch, but really it's number 3 branch. It's kind of a spiral, I guess you could say, in a way. It goes from one side to the other, and it progressively gets higher as it goes up the tree. But if you're looking at the front of the tree, it's considered number 2 branch. We have a number 3 branch here. We have a number 4 branch here. And I want you to pay attention to one thing here, if you notice it. All the branches that I've grafted, as well as the large branch over here that I just got done rewiring, all the growing tips are facing upward. This thing being apically dominant, what I'm trying to do is trying to tell the tree, hey, this is a new apex over here. We need to pump some energy over here so we can get this apex up to where the rest of them are. And by keeping this top chop back, chop back, chop back, that's going to tell the tree, let's divert energy to this other one so maybe we can make it the new apex. We're going to get faster growth. We're going to develop thicker branch in a less amount of time. So that's something you might want to think about or consider doing when you do your grafted branches. Back branch in the back actually points up at the tip already, just by the way it had a fork. I cut off one of the forks, and the secondary fork was facing upward, so it's facing upward already to an extent. I may well go ahead and wire that one up as well. But that's what we're left with. We'll go ahead and do a quick 360 here. Now this one, instead of pouring the fertilizer to it, and instead of pouring the water to it and everything, I'm going to still make sure it gets watered, gets plenty of water. The way my sprinkling system or my irrigation system for my trees is set up out there, it is an overhead mist or rain type setup. So not only do the leaves get it, but the trunk gets it and the soil gets it. And what I've used is they're 12-inch pop-up sprinklers that you would normally put in the ground for irrigation for your lawn. What I've done is I've actually fastened them to the 4x4 posts of my fence. So when they pop up, they actually pop up a little bit higher than my fence, and they have a 15-foot spray radius, and I have them overlapping. So, you know, each one overlaps like this when it sprays. So the entire area gets very soaked in about a 10-minute time. During the summer, we have really hot summers down here. I normally get about 10 minutes every other day. And then I also come out and I check them. There's been a couple times during the summer when we've had these 100, 103, 105 days where I've actually had to supplementary water the soil because it had dried out. So, you know, that's my water regime every other day, 10 minutes, soaks everything down real good. And then I come out and check. I have some trees out there that are in smaller containers that typically I'll have to water a little bit more frequently, so when I do that I'll kind of hit these up if they seem to be a little dry. But let this top grow to about the thickness of my finger, chop it back. That's going to force the rest of the buds that are there. You won't be able to see them. They're still going to be considered dormant buds because they're going to be right at this intersection where the branch comes up and the leaf comes out, the little leaf stem. There's dormant buds there, so when you chop the top off, those little dormant buds are activated, and those will actually start shooting out as branches. We're just going to keep hammer and hammer and hammer and hammer and keeping this top cut back. Letting that grow out to a finger thickness also brings the apex of the tree forward again, so it's leaning forward to greet you, just like you want to have your bonsai. You want to have them not as drastically inclined as this thing was initially, but leaning forward to greet the person that's viewing it. Keep your fingers crossed these branches take. I don't see why they wouldn't. This one over here took in one growing season. If I can keep the cats and the squirrels away from it, I should have no problem. And we'll go from there. Let's do a quick little 360 of it. I know I've probably done about 2 or 3 of them already, but I was successfully able to wire this lower branch into position. I have a thick enough wire that I have a more realistic looking bend in it. It wasn't as extreme. I think what may have happened is whatever came through and knocked the wire that was on that one last year and kind of bent it out of proportion, and I didn't catch it until the branch had already set. The great thing about wires is you can always move them back to where you want them to be. And that's pretty much it for this one. We'll update this one at the same time we update the other trees that we're doing this spring as far as development goes on a journey to my benches. We'll do a summer update, and we'll go from there. Thank you for watching.